I want to thank everybody for taking the time today to listen to ways we can help combat teen suicide and depression, an epidemic that's affecting New Jersey and the nation. Our foundation wants New Jersey to lead the country in promoting mental wellness. We want to make New Jersey better for our youth, better for our families, and better for all who live here.
As far as I'm concerned, this is an issue that has to come out of the closet and have some sun shine on it. There's a couple things people have mentioned to me as to why this thing has occurred, this thing being teenage suicide. They point out, and Diane will talk about it, I know, and Rochelle is, that when I was younger, bullying went on in the playground, in the schools, on a ball field, but you would leave there to the safety of your own home. Nowadays, because of the social network, it goes right into your home with that teenager. There's no escaping it. The other issue that experts talk about is the issue of a support system that's lacking, especially in the white suburban communities. Young people in our society, in the suburbs, in terms of participating in church, in the temple, whatever religion you practice, are way down. They feel that today's youth are missing that support system that I had and generations behind me. I did have a whole village. That church and all the activities surrounding it was a support system. I want to talk about some stats. Now, in this country, it was just announced in all the papers, according to Centers for Disease Control, that teenage suicide in our country has gone up 70% in the last 10 years. That's an incredible statistic. Each year, roughly 1,000 people in our state, aged 10 to 24, are admitted to emergency rooms for non-fatal suicide attempts. My foundation is looking to do one thing right off the bat. We want to go into the schools and train the non-teaching personnel what to look for when a teenager or a person who's 10 years old or 9 years old comes to you and says, I'm depressed, and how do you handle that? What do you do? For example, I know Marvin had said to me about they have to understand that if a student says to them, listen, I'm depressed, I'm suicidal, but don't tell anyone. Well, that's the worst thing you could do. You have to tell someone. You have to get help. So teachers, take an online course. We want to look at their online course and see whether or not it's effective enough. And if it's not, we'll bring the teenagers in. The next thing we're going to do is, I've spoken to the Department of Health. They are going to create a task force on teenage suicide. They will report with recommendations for the state of New Jersey to tackle this issue. The third component is this. I will put a bill in the legislature for a pot of roughly about $1 million. With that $1 million at the Department of Education, school districts can compete for that money to hire mental health counselors in the school system. So that counselor can go to a middle school one day, the high school the other day, a grammar school the next, so forth and so on.
I appreciate being a part of this. It's important to me because we did lose a child to suicide. As a parent, it's important to me that we're doing these initiatives, that we're reaching into the schools, talking to people who may not normally be the people that are trained, but our kids are comfortable talking to a security guard or someone at the lunch counter or a secretary that might be in the office. Those are the people that the kids are friends with and they're comfortable talking to, so we need to recognize that those people have an influence on our child and can make a difference. The most important thing to me is this group of people that they're getting together to look into teen suicide. I feel very strongly about that. It's an epidemic in our country and in our state. And although our state looks on paper like one of the better states, it doesn't matter. One life is too much. So we need to do what we can to help our kids know that it's okay to not be okay, that there are people that can help them. And one of the things I feel strongly about with this too is that we make sure we include the kids in this conversation. A lot of times we as adults look at situations and say, what can we do to help our kids, and how are we going to do this, and let's do this for them, and let's do that. If the kids are not involved in this, it's going to fail. It needs to be something that they buy into, that they're comfortable with, that's their ideas, so that we can be a part of the solution. I lost my son, who was a bright, as everyone called him, a light. He was not what you might typically think of someone as suicidal. He was a college or high school soccer star on his way to play college soccer. He was bright, outgoing, everybody's friend. Those are the kids that we need to think about as well. Mental illness doesn't always look like darkness. It doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it's someone who's out there smiling and making everyone laugh. We need to be alert for all our kids, not just the ones that look sad on the outside. That's the most important message I have today, and I appreciate your time, and thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diane Grossman, and my daughter is Mallory Rose Grossman. You might have heard about her. She is the 12-year-old that ended her life on June 14th, 2017. I'm here today with my husband, so I always like to bring acknowledgement to him. We've been married for 18 years, live in a beautiful home, have a swimming pool in our backyard. Mallory was a cheerleader. She was a gymnast. She was popular among her small circle of friends. She also had the number one characteristic, which is sensitivity. It's the number one characteristic of a child that is to be bullied at school, as well as a child that would end their life. When I learned about Rochelle's son, I, like every single person in this room, thought, oh, there's something wrong there. I suffered from a disease that every single parent suffers from, not my child syndrome, right? We do everything right. We buy them the best clothes. We do all the things that we think are important. And by the way, we think are important. That's the number one thing that we should be doing, like Rochelle and Governor Codey said. We need to be listening to our children, because here's what's happening. They're solving their problems because they do not trust the adults in their lives, from educators, administrators, mental health professionals. They do not trust us to solve their problems, so they're solving their own. I did not believe for a second my daughter would hurt herself. I had no reason to. The signs that she experienced are the same signs that every other tween goes through. Moodiness, mad at their parents, slamming doors, loss of appetite, sadness. Those are also the same things that I should be looking for when she's about to get her period. So why would it be on my radar? This is why we have to treat mental illness the same compassion that we have for cancer and car accidents. We have to. It is an epidemic that is destroying lives. It's destroying childhoods. The good news in all of this is the number 3 leading cause of death in New Jersey, we can solve. That is such a positive thing for us to be focusing on. Think about it. There's a good chance that we're not going to cure cancer. There's a really good chance that we're not going to prevent car accidents. But to understand that we can use our lives to let the children know that we hear you and we can solve what's going on in here and in here. So I'm here today to put and shine a beautiful light, my daughter's light, to let you know that your words matter. The things that you say online and the things that you say to people, your words matter. See, my daughter was a humanitarian. She believed that little acts of kindness mattered. As a matter of fact, she wore these and made these little bracelets, and she would sell them for kids with Camp Good Days, which happens to be a camp for kids with cancer. And she called it a bracelet kind of life. See, she believed that wearing a small homemade bracelet on your arm reminded you to not be a jerk. Today, she lives her bracelet kind of life. We empower children, educate parents, and enrich the schools that we touch through Mallory's Army. I am so grateful to be here today because of my husband, because of my friend Rochelle, and because of Governor Codey and his wife for bringing us to the platform to share our story, share our journey, and share our lives. Our lives will make yours better. Thank you so much for having me today.
So one can't help but be inspired by the ladies and how they've transformed the terrible loss to be able to kind of become advocates. And that's exactly what we need, because in the end of the day, we are operating under the fact that suicides are preventable. And I'm glad to hear that there's action on both of you taking steps. And so we understand in mental health, as all the people do, that there's not just one thing that is going to be the singular answer to ending suicides. As Governor Codey had said, that we're already talking about a systemic approach, an approach that basically looks at the entire system and how we can get all the parts doing their job. We're suggesting in mental health just one little piece here, one tiny piece that becomes part of this whole safety net. Think of the child's universe, and being that we want to be able to make impact into all of this child's universe. So a child's universe is his parents and extended family, and we want them to be educated. And we think about that instead of work for adults, their workplace is school. And so it makes sense to kind of go in and do mental health treatment, education in the school system. This is really what we have to do. And there are a lot of other great clinicians and great agencies, great people working in the mental health field to attack different parts of this system. And we want to be able to do something here that sort of takes just a small piece. And the piece that we're looking for is this education piece to get into schools and to educate those people who don't have mandated education, licensed professional development mandated educational stuff. And so we can educate all the other people of a child's universe. And that's the educational support professionals who spend much time during the day with students, and then the lunchroom ladies, and then the security guards, and the bus drivers, and the clerical staff, and all the other people that may have touches of incidences where in the day they may hear something and see something, and we want them to be aware and say, I noticed something different about this child today. I overheard a conversation about this. This person doesn't look as well as they did the day before. You have basically a structured time frame where you educate these non-licensed but very important people in the school system about the signs, about the symptoms, about the behaviors to look for in addressing, and to be able to kind of be concerned. Not that they're going to intervene, because that's not the point, but they're going to tell somebody. They're going to refer this child. They're going to make sure that this child does not fall out of the safety net that is going to be designed to wrap around, because that's what we really need for this program to really succeed.